The Ballad of Johnny Arcane by Jim Nail, read by Jim Nail, Chapter 10, Division, Part 2. The meeting went badly from the start. Perhaps it was the particular messiness of the squall that ushered in that spring. Like bears aroused early from their peaceful hibernation, the townspeople gathered, damp and grumpy, in the long hall, standing bleary-eyed in line for their bacon and soggy pancakes, grunting greetings with folded arms, while the mayor moved among them, shaking hands and speaking welcome in a voice that scarcely concealed a sense of worry and mistrust. Plates in hand, the townspeople settled at the tables in an alarmingly ordered pattern. Those who sat on the left-hand side, away from the musicians' platform, were mostly abstainers. Some had even pinned to their uniforms the small yellow ribbon which had become the abstainers' insignia. The easternmost tables of the long hall looked like a meadow dotted with early wildflowers. None who sat at the middle table wore the ribbon. These were the undecided. Some had tasted the cow meat, others had not, but most of those who had tasted it said they did not care for it, or they were unsure of its nutritional value. Johnny sat in the back with Jocko, Bearclaw, and Ant, Little Chestnut, on Ant's lap, tearing pancakes into the shapes of wild animals. All the musicians had tasted the meat and even written a song about it, so technically they were on the side of the non-abstainers. However, none of them wanted to be allied with either side in the conflict. Musicians should always rise above, argued Bearclaw. Music is the language of reconciliation. Music is the language of love, countered Ant. Well, I wouldn't take it quite that far, Bearclaw replied. Birdie Man did not sit at his throne. As tradition prescribed, he walked among the tables carrying a very old scroll which delineated the components of the annual Spring Fest. Turner, you be fashioning the banner pole? Yes, sir, said a tall man in the woodworker's plaid. It's the summer of the birch. I found her in the North Woods, and tall and straight she is. And have they chosen the banner? Well, there's two in the running. We might take them both, but there's still the issue of which goes on top. Tell me more. Well, Maggie Mender made one what shows the winter wolves howling on the ridgetop. A lovely thing, but most of us favor the one made by our own fiddler and telemarine. She calls it The Return of Johnny Arcane. Johnny shook Ant's shoulder. What's he talking about? What banners? Oh, it's just a silly thing, said Ant. Part of the Spring Fest. Every fest they raise a banner pole. 3 trees, alder, birch, and ash. They rotate them. Then they have a contest. People are supposed to submit banners depicting the most important event of the winter. Bearclaw chuckled. Don't let her fool you, Johnny. She's been working on this every night since the past moon. She won't admit that she's proud of what she made. She's still in love with you, Johnny. Ant blushed. Oh, you be quiet. That's not it. It was the most important event of the winter, and nobody else made a banner about it. See what I mean? She's still in love with you. The discussion turned to food. Pig meat was never eaten at Springfest. The traditional meat was turkey, and this summer many fine toms and hens had been rooched out of the north woods by Sparky Flaxman and his band of metal bangers. They were fattened in the turkey barn by every scrap of food left from the meals in the long haul, and now they were plump as full moons. The scullery maids were already at work on their famous table-long squash cake. And of course, there would be honey mead for the grown-ups and apple cider for the children. For a while, it seemed like the subject of cows wasn't going to come up, and a cautious but pleasant camaraderie was spreading among the townspeople at the thought of familiar cuisine. After all, there were no cows to eat in King Corn. There was nothing to discuss. But then it happened. From the back of the room, while Minnie Bloom was describing the delicate art of sugar lacing, a voice, a man's voice, surprising everyone in its abruptness. "Well, I made a banner, but nobody wanted to look at it." Minnie stopped talking. All heads turned. It was Danny Block, the sawyer, sitting slouched on his spine, his hands folded over his paunchy belly. "You want to know what it was called?" There was a ruffle of muffled voices moving from right to left. Then a man spoke out of the cluster of the abstainers. "We seen your banner, Danny. We just didn't like it." "It was a good banner, Beetroot. You just didn't like what it was called." Another roll of voices, this time with a few audible syllables. Beetroot spoke again. "I guess you're right about that, Danny. The banner was well made. But we are not of one mind here on the subject of cow meat. Our banners need to be something about something that we all believe in." Now the chorus of voices became more agitated, still from the side of the abstainers. On the other side, the people fidgeted, silent anxiety written on their faces. A woman from the abstainers stood. "Yeah," she said, "it was hard enough for us to agree on the return of Johnny Arcane." Hearing his name, Johnny felt a cold stone drop in his pit of his stomach. Now the tremor was rising on the other side of the room. Several people stood. "Wait a minute, Foxglove," said a man. "Johnny Arcane did return. Everybody knows that. There's no argument." "Well, a lot of people returned. Paleface returned from Archer's Vale. Doggy Barker came back from Sputum with a whole new wife and 5 new children. Nobody made a banner out of that. What's so special about Johnny Arcane?" Bearclaw glanced down at the discomfort on Johnny's face. He sighed. "Guess I better intervene." He jumped up on the platform where everybody could see him. Indeed, he did have the demeanor of a bear. As he hunched above the crowd, his hefty, hairy arms poised at his sides, relaxed but ready to grasp anything that came his way. "People of Kincorn, this bickering is not befitting." Voices rose to silence him, but he was louder, and he commanded attention. "No, listen to me, hear me out. I have something to say." In the momentary silence that followed, Aunt, sitting next to Johnny, slipped her hand into his and held it there, firmly, intentionally. Johnny felt equally comforted and confused. It seemed like Bear Claw wasn't doing much better. He stared across the sea of faces with a blank expression, as if words would fail him if he tried to speak. Someone in the back began to mumble. Bear Claw could wait no longer. His words tumbled forth. "Johnny Arcane is our friend," he began. "He came to us at Cornfest 5 summers ago. He climbed the silo and he brought down the honey. No one has done this for 7 fests. Some of us saw this as a sign. There's hunger, always. There was hunger then and there's hunger now. Sometimes the hunger's for food, and sometimes it's for something else. But here's the deal. Johnny Arcane brought us something we were hungry for. It wasn't something to eat. It was a new kind of music. And he showed us how to climb the silo." A small group of children began banging their plates and chanting, "He climbed the sunbeams and he held on to the birds." Their parents quickly shushed them. "Well, he did," Bear Claw continued. "Every Cornfest since then, someone's been able to do it. Johnny Arcane's a good friend. He brought us some good things, and he came back to us this winter, and I think that's reason enough to hoist a banner to him." A general ruckus rose from all sides, but it subsided when a man's voice rang out from the non-abstainers. "With all due respect, Bear Claw, someone else came to King Corn this winter besides just Johnny Arcane, and they brought something we could really eat." Bear Claw retorted before the crowd could get out of hand. "I have no quarrel with you, Tiller. I ate the meat. It was good. Just because there's differences doesn't mean there's quarrels." "Hear, hear," someone shouted. Several heads nodded. From the non-abstainers, a man spoke in an aggressive voice. "We don't want quarrels." Then from the abstainers, a woman said, "It's not just the cow meat, Bear Claw. There's other things. We don't want the water. The water's dangerous. It could bring poison to every home in this town." Some people standing near this woman distanced themselves from here. "No, we want the water, don't we? The water's good." Others stomped their feet and started chanting, "We don't want the water! We don't want the water!" Soon there was generalized chaos. Among the abstainers, some people standing up, others sitting down, some walking away. "Quiet! Be quiet!" came a voice louder than any human should have. People turned their heads. Mayor Burlyman was standing on his throne holding a large, tapered metal funnel, usually used for sorting grain. "Everybody sit down and shut up. It's not about the water and it's not about the cows. This is about Springfest. There will be no running water and there will be no cows at Springfest. And I hereby decree there will be only one banner on the banner pole. It will be the Winter Wolves Howling on the Ridgetop by Maggie Mender. We must get along and we must have a Springfest. Anybody doesn't like this, they can leave now." The mayor looked like a wild man standing on his throne with the bandage still on the side of his face where the cow kicked him. He looked like he had been pulling out his hair. It stuck out like spider's legs on all sides of his head. But nobody left, at least not then. Some people mumbled, some people grumbled. There were words of aggravation and words of reconciliation. One by one, everyone sat. Birdie Man himself seemed surprised, almost sheepish. He stepped down, picked up the old scroll, and walked into the crowd. With the scroll unrolled, he approached a group of women at the central table. Foxglove, Celandine, how are you doing on the costumes for the petal dance? Only the musicians saw the two scullery maids leaving by the service door. Misha had one arm around Marta, who was weeping.